So let's head over this way to CholestaCare.
Right.
And I do want to save at least a minute at the end of the show. I have a question for Andrew to
And there was a good
round
question
out.
on CholestaCare amongst the questions that were asked. And so many of the things we're talking about are questions that I've been asked.
Yes.
But if you're taking our Choco Nuvo, each piece of Choco Nuvo is the equivalent of a capsule of CholestaCare.
Okay.
CholestaCare is plant sterols. Choco Nuvo is plant sterol esters. They both have the same effectiveness. They are both at the same level of potency. So it was a question. So you could use them interchangeably. For those of you who like having a piece of chocolate with each meal, then you don't have to have your CholestaCare separately anymore. So it's something, they are the exact same mechanism of action, and they both are exceptionally effective at lowering our total cholesterol and our LDL, our bad cholesterol. Many people have told me that they struggle to remember which is good, which is bad. LDL is the bad one. I always say, if you can't remember, just remember lousy. So LDL is lousy. HDL is the good, and you know, people say the VLDL, that's very lousy. So, and HDL is the happy cholesterol. Right. That's the one you want high, HDL. So, but in terms of total and LDL cholesterol, you could have a significant reduction. One capsule of CholestaCare, say with each meal, maybe 2 capsules at a very large meal. All you need to do is take a minimum of 2 capsules daily, and what it can deliver is reductions of 10, 15, 20% or more. There's research clinical studies that show when you combine it with a healthy diet, high in fiber, lower saturated fat and cholesterol, you can get reductions of 40%, which we've seen in many, many reviews.
Andrew, is cholesterol and cholesterol issues associated with a certain time frame in your life where it starts to become more serious?
Not necessarily. Cholesterol in some of us can get worse as we get older, but like most things, as we get older, whatever, say if our numbers are a little out of line when we're young, that deviation becomes more meaningful and more problematic as we get older. Right. Certainly, there are a lot of things more important than cholesterol in terms of cardiovascular risk, like our blood pressure, like our blood sugar in my mind, like our overweight and obesity. Cholesterol becomes very meaningful at its extremes when it becomes significantly high. What's wonderful about CholestaCare is it can deliver such a significant reduction without side effect. So it could reduce, say if your cholesterol is 225, and it might not be enough to warrant taking a drug or medication, but it warrants concern. And your LDL might be 130, 140 or so. With using CholestaCare, you can reduce that, say, by 15 or 20%. All of a sudden, that cholesterol level could be 175, 180, 185, and your LDL can suddenly be 100 to 110, which dramatically will change your doctor's perspective on your cardiovascular risk, particularly in light of if you have other factors in play like blood sugar or blood pressure, things like that. So it's something that's exceedingly effective. It works perfectly, just as Choco Nuvo does, with any cholesterol-lowering drug. The principal ones I think most people take are the statin drugs. Statin drugs work as an inhibitor of the HMG-CoA reductase in the liver. It inhibits cholesterol synthesis. Zetia works on sort of the metabolism of cholesterol in terms of the liver, so in terms of our digestive system. So Zetia is a different mechanism, but again, this works through your digestive system, so you don't have to worry about it having a negative impact with any of those drugs. What I've mentioned a couple of times, it's worthy of discussing with your doctor. Yes. Don't do this on your own, but talk to your doctor. If you take a statin drug, there's great research that says whatever benefit you're getting from that statin drug, especially if you're taking one of those with a longer half-life, like what is it, I think it's rosuvastatin, Crestor, a couple of the others, that you could go every other day and your numbers won't change. So, and when you go every other day, you're having your dose, you're dramatically reducing risk of side effect. With Zetia, the typical dosage, recommended dosage is 10 milligrams. I think that's the only pill that's available, perhaps. That you could cut that in half at 5 milligrams, and I think the clinical studies have said that your cholesterol number will not really change significantly. Again, having the dose dramatically reduces side effects. So again, talk to your doctor about this. It's not necessarily something that your doctor might even be aware of, but there is research out there, and because I'm always drowning in research, I might as well share it. And again, don't act upon it on your own, just talk to your doctor about it.
If you're looking to lower your cholesterol, certainly investigate this product. And I think for a lot of us, when we think about reviews and people commenting on something, it is human nature that the most of us leave negative reviews, or we're more open to complain about something if it's not right. Well, with Andrew, it's the complete reverse of that. Folks, there are thousands of people that say, oh my gosh, I have to share my story. And this is a great example.
Oh no, CholestaCare is, in terms of reviews, it's one of those products where the numbers, the numbers don't lie. And also, with all the pressure the FDA had from the drug companies to not approve a natural ingredient to lower total and LDL cholesterol, for the FDA to do that, all it speaks is to the reliability of that ingredient, the trustworthiness of the ingredient, the safety of the ingredient. So it's a natural product. It doesn't come with any side effects or warnings, but it's a wonderful way to do something that we all seek. But most of the time when we have to seek outside to fix it, we're fixing it with a drug or medication, which comes with side effects and issues. And we want to do that, again, as carefully, cautiously, as judiciously as possible. And many people aren't candidates for taking the statin drugs because of the way they affect them. Also, if you take a statin drug, it's a HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor, that enzyme in your liver. In so doing, it's also an inhibitor of CoQ10 synthesis. So you're synthesizing less CoQ10 necessary for muscle function, energy function, cellular function. So again, you should be supplementing coenzyme Q10 if you are taking a statin drug, at least 200 milligrams daily. Absolutely, positively. If you read the reviews of Fibromucil, people have a love affair with this product, just as they say do with circulation vein support. But talk about a fiber product that will not upset your stomach, that will not cause bloating, will not cause gas, and all it does is gently helps move things through you in a comfortable fashion, helps support regularity in a comfortable fashion, because it's hard or impossible to be regular without adequate fiber intake. And one of the defining characteristics of the American diet is inadequate fiber intake. Also, if you want your numbers with CholestaCare, if you want to add another 5% or so in the reduction that you get with CholestaCare, every time you take a capsule of CholestaCare, take 1 or 2 capsules of Fibromucil. CholestaCare kind of acts like a sponge. It really blocks the absorption of the cholesterol in your body, the blocks the reabsorption of bile. And what Fibromucil does acts as like a broom, sweeping it out. So between the two, you get even better cholesterol reduction and an even greater improvement in terms of your cardiovascular risk profile.
So, Andrew, as we come to the end of the show, there is a question I want to ask you.
Uh-oh.
Okay. If you could travel back 38 years, right? What would the Andrew Lessman of today say to the Andrew Lessman who is just starting out? What would be the advice that you would give that Andrew Lessman?
That's a great question, and I would have no doubt about the answer. That we talked about this show initially, we talked about stress and sort of having conviction about having a path in life. That I had conviction, I had a path, but the world is a difficult place. And what is it in Shakespeare? Surviving the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. That life can be harsh, life can be difficult. And what probably the most important thing I could say is just keep the faith. Just hang in there, because a lot of those big companies out there targeted us. And sometimes you just have to keep the faith and have confidence that if you do it right, that you're going to survive and you're going to do well. So that's what I try to say that when I speak to students, when I speak to young people, that I say whatever you do, you just have to do it with conviction, do it with passion. If you have doubts, put them on the back burner.
Yeah.
Let the world tell you if what you're doing is correct or not. This is a product that focuses on the symptoms of menopause and perimenopause, a bit on PMS as well, but really menopause and perimenopause, that's where the product is at its best, and that's where the reviews are most remarkable. But when I first introduced this product, and again, I talk about things that probably dates me or ages me, and because I started my company 38 years ago, when I first introduced this product well over 20 years ago, I could not speak about, even though I knew the incredible benefits it had for the symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, interruptions of sleep, I couldn't speak to those things because whether I like the law or not, I respect the law. And at that time, the law was, going back over 20 years ago, that if something is a symptom of a disease, you can't offer a supplement to mitigate or to treat that symptom of a disease. And the reason I'm saying that is because at that time, menopause and perimenopause, of all things, was considered a disease. I think the drug companies are always out looking for a new disease, but it's amazing that at that time, I think what's wonderful that's changed is now so many more women are involved in the medical profession, the medical field, our physicians themselves, in the regulatory fields as well, that the outrageousness of that position, that menopause and perimenopause were a disease and you couldn't offer product to help with that because that would be treating a disease, that's changed. So now, fortunately, but it doesn't change the way things are with other dietary supplements. It just means that this bit of unreasonableness is gone. So, but as I said, it's for me, I mean, fortunately, I'm not like the big pharma companies. I don't aspire to be a big company. I just aspire to be the size that we comfortably can be, and that's it. And when it comes to Ultimate Women's Wellness, it's a product that if you read the reviews, you will see that whether it's hot flashes, night sweats, interruptions of sleep, the mood disruptions, and every woman experiences menopause and perimenopause differently.
Folks, this is where I started with Andrew, way back when, with Andrew's Essential One, and I greatly enjoyed the last time Andrew was in St. Petersburg. Andrew, you had a real comparison chart showcasing, because there's a lot of us out there that take a multivitamin, and if I ever see anybody out there taking one, I always ask them, well, what are you taking? Have you thought about Andrew Lessman's Essential One? For somebody that wants a multivitamin, when we say the words, the best in the world, we mean it on every level.
Yes, and what's so great about Essential One is how easy it is to show how objective, meaning that no matter what whether you're prejudiced, whether you're biased, just objectively, we're going to talk about facts. We don't need any alternate facts or alternative facts, whatever they call them. So if you just look at the facts here, it's a small, easy to swallow capsule versus these enormous horse pills that are difficult to swallow.
What they are.
The ultrafine powder that dissolves instantly, making it available for absorption and helping you, versus a large tablet that might not disintegrate, might not be beneficial, and will most certainly upset your stomach. So just objectively, just even without even trying the product, just looking at one versus the other, that capsule is preferential. In fact, there's a lot of medications on the market now that even though they're still in tablets, what they do is they coat them with gelatin,
right,
and they call them like a tabsule or whatever it is, a caplet. They make them look like capsules because they know that consumers, like us, we prefer capsules. I'm someone who, I don't make any products in tablets because I can't tolerate swallowing tablets. If I had a handful of capsules and one tablet in with them and I took it,
right,
the one tablet, whatever, 10 seconds later will still be in my mouth. The capsules will go away. They'll just slide right down. So tablets are just, I bet I know your next question, they're cheaper to make.
Okay.
They're cheaper to make, they're easier to make. You throw in a bunch of additives, you mix it up, you put it in the tablet, you die. Plus, you take materials, in many cases, that are living materials like friendly flora or things like that, and you compress them under tens of thousands of pounds per square inch of pressure with these additives to make them stick together, because you have to add glue to the tablet because it's not sticking together on its own. Then you typically coat it. Then you sometimes coat it with sugar, which most of the leading multivitamins, if you read their label,
right,
they have sweeteners and sugars in them. Why? Because they want you to like the taste of that tablet in your mouth. They have artificial colors in it. Why? Because they think you won't like the vitamin as much as if it isn't a pretty yellow or orange or pink or green. They think you want it to be, I mean, mine are pretty boring. You know,
boring is good in tablets. I like it.
Theirs are, you know, have pretty colors. You know, mine does not. And I'll open this capsule, which is it's a soft capsule, easy to swallow, and it's just an ultrafine powder. It contains a lot of material. And the other thing is, with my Essential One, and again, it's the idea of being additive-free, free of additives, that even though that capsule isn't a big capsule, because we don't have a lot of other stuff in there, you get more of what you want. You look at all the key nutrients, whether it's the B complex or B12 or biotin. You look at my product, and you're getting multiples more. Most of the leading brands don't have lutein, zeaxanthin, or lycopene. None of them have zeaxanthin. Most of them have either none or trace amounts of lutein or lycopene. We give you real levels of all these ingredients. So it's one of those products that if you want to see the difference between how I go about making a product and how the other guys do, it's the best exercise in the world. And maybe what I should do almost, we might be going to shoot some videos that we'll leave on the website. Maybe I'll take a bottle of one of those leading brands and just discuss the difference between my Essential One and theirs. And I would say I almost feel guilty comparing our product to theirs because my product has nothing to do with what theirs is.
Right.
We might both contain some vitamins and minerals, but our B12 is in a form. B12 is typically not absorbable when you introduce it through your mouth. We created a new form of B12 to make it absorbable. First of all, ours is the natural coenzyme form that your body uses, theirs is not. And ours is protected from stomach acids, so it bypasses your stomach, so it can be absorbed in the small intestine and benefit you. And almost every ingredient in my multivitamin has that kind of a differentiating story because we want the product to work for you at the right level, in the right form, and of course, in a dosage form that's going to work.
So if I can be so bold to really ask anybody out there that's maybe just channel surfing, just finding us for the first time, maybe you've never seen Andrew Lessman before, if you are currently taking a multivitamin, I would ask you to just stop for a second. Maybe it's Centrum, maybe you've taken it for years, and consider taking Andrew's multivitamin. When you do a side-by-side comparison, there is no comparison. Even if out of this entire 2-hour show, the only thing you do is say, all right, I'm going to do the multivitamin. I know it's good for me. I know it's a good decision to make. You will not be disappointed. For anyone out there that's ever said, I can't possibly take a supplement because it's heavy on my stomach, Andrew's explained that. The rock hard tablets versus these ones.
Plus, what we do is, I look at the most common question I have to answer in my reviews. I should probably put a disclaimer on the website. We don't pull out the bad reviews. This is a product that, a multivitamin of all things, is 95% positive reviews, almost 85% 5-star reviews. For a super, a high-potency multivitamin in a single capsule, that's remarkable, and I think most people find it a little bit incredible or not believable, but it is. It's just, as I said before, I don't do it the way everybody else has been doing it. If you look at 99% of the multivitamins purchased and consumed in America, they're tablets. Yep. They come with artificial colors and all sorts of other binders and fillers. They have relatively low levels of key nutrients, and they all contain the same forms of those nutrients. Everybody basically does kind of a carbon copy of everybody else. Maybe it's a little bit different color tablet, maybe it's a different shape tablet, but they're all basically the same. And then even more, if you don't buy Centrum or One A Day, whether you go to Walmart or Costco or wherever it might be, they have their version of those multivitamins made by a contract manufacturer who has the exact same formula using different colors, whatever it might be. Right. That's the exact same formula where they'll even tell you to compare it to One A Day Women or compare it to Centrum for men over 50. That they're basically all doing the same thing, which is just, and they're just happy to capture some sales because they're on 100,000 store shelves in America. And I'm just a little tiny brand that's on a shopping channel on a website here. So again, as I said, I don't have a small advertising budget. I have no advertising budget. So it's sort of funny. But
well, you are the walking advertisement. Yeah. Every single person that's a part of Andrew's family, as it were.
Our product is our advertising budget. And that's what's stood us well over 38 years. Gosh. Long before I was ever on a TV shopping channel, whatever that was, 26, 27 years ago, we were growing, and again, simply growing by word of mouth.
Right.
And I guess because I didn't have shareholders and a board of directors that wanted profits and this and that, I was able to continue growing patiently as the company grew. And I had another job initially because I wasn't going to push the growth of the company or take in investors or things like that or compromise the quality of the products. So I've been steadfast in that regard, and even to this day, here we are 38 years later, the reason why there's solar panels in the parking lot and solar panels in the roof, the reason why we give away 2 bottles of prenatal vitamins for every bottle of vitamins that you get, we can do that because I don't have shareholders and I don't have a board of